professional introduction, I do want to say Alyson, one of our scientists today, one of the best groovers to our opening 30-second salvo, so thank you very much for that. My name is Jesse, and welcome to broadcast number 607. We're almost there. We're doing it together with the epic Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants March Mammal Madness Festival extravaganza today. As Katie, our leader, our glorious leader for this fantastic program, has said, this is a love letter to the community. And truly, I've been doing this for 7 years now. This is the best community of scientists I've ever run across. You guys are so enthusiastic, so keen about the work that you do, and so passionate about sharing it with such a wide audience. And so viewers today joining us from across Canada, the US, and internationally, you're in for another treat. All the past broadcasts are on YouTube as well forever, and I hope you get the chance to check them out. Now, today, we have had the pleasure of being joined by all sorts of amazing March Mammal Madness scientists. We've talked about genetics, art, animal behavior, which we're looping back in right now, a retrospective of 10 years of this amazing program. And if you want to get involved in 2022, fill out your bracket, get all those educator resources, check out the LibGuide below. So the Arizona State University amazing LibGuide has all sorts of things for any age group you'd ever want, amazing art, all sorts of great stuff. I hope you get the chance to see that and take part after the broadcast is done. And of course, I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So what we do is 40 to 50 broadcasts every single month with scientists and explorers around the world for free that stay up forever. So if you're keen to learn about any topic imaginable, check out our YouTube page as well, and you'll see so much on the go there. Now, right now, we are joined by 3 awesome scientists. We're joined by Katie Hunt, the leader of the entire March Mammal Madness extravaganza. We are joined by Lara Durgavich, joining us again. She's so good, she had to come back a second time, just like lower minds some new information. And we are joined by the ultimate YouTube person watching in our broadcast today, Alyson Brokaw. Going to talk to us today all about bats. Bats have been a big topic today. I'm very excited to dive in with this in a lot of detail. We've got many bats in our bracket, as befits a group of creatures that makes it, what, Alyson? What percentage of all the mammals in the world are bats? Like 25?
It's about 20%.
It's crazy.
About 20%.
Yeah. So for like our audience, how many mammals are there? There's about 6,000 mammals in the world, something like that. We keep getting a little bit more. Katie's like, oh, I don't know. Higher? You know, I was a kid.
7,000.
5,500 was when I was a kid, and they just keep finding more. They keep going to the dense jungles and like moving the leaves aside and finding new mice and bats all over the place. But guys, I am so excited to dive in on another program on animal behavior. Ethology was my favorite topic as a boy. It's so exciting to get to talk about the wide and wonderful world of creatures. And so, Alyson, it's your first time today joining us, and so you get first dibs with 3 great nature experiences. We don't want to keep it to just one. I know it's impossible to pick your favorite time in nature. It's impossible for me too. But are there moments that really speak to you about your experiences out in the field for your work, or just in general enjoying the natural world?
Yeah. So I've been incredibly privileged and fortunate to get to spend a lot of time in the field, and I study bats, which means I'm out at night, which to some people may seem like it might be scary, but I think it's actually just really beautiful because you experience this sort of time of day and place that humans generally aren't out, especially these days. So one of my favorites is, surprise, about bats. It is the bat emergence from Bracken Cave in Central Texas. It is the world's largest bat colony. Peak summer colony numbers are between 15 and 20 million bats. And it's amazing. They call it the batnado, and the bats just spiral out and then like spiral above you. And then, yeah, I think some of the other cool ones have been mostly from being out at night. I remember being really excited. We saw an ocelot when I was working in Mexico. And I was like in camp, also in Mexico, and this pair of gray foxes were just like chilling out, kind of watching me do my thing, and I watched them, and then they kind of just trotted off. So it was just really cool to like kind of be in this space where the animals are, you're just there and they're just there, and everyone just like does their own thing.
I love that you've seen an ocelot. That is like one of the creatures that when we've had people on before, like you never see them. You never see wolverines. You never see lynxes. Ocelot's one of those creatures. And I'm so glad you talked about bat emergences. So many people, when I was a boy, I grew up in Toronto, and I thought about wildlife in East Africa, in Australia, and the jungles of the Congo. But North America was always a place for me that I felt, oh, there's not, it didn't seem as romantic to me. And to think that there's the biggest bat colony in the world, or for our audience today, Austin, Texas, right, has the 2 million that are under the bridge, which is crazy to think that you have this city where you can experience one of the most amazing things in nature right there, like walk to the bridge and see these bats come out. It's so magical. Great kickoff to our story today. Thank you so much, Alyson. Danielle, I want to just bring you in to say a quick hi. We'll get to the question in a minute so you can hear from me. But hello, welcome into the studio.
Hey, thank y'all. I'm literally coming in hot. How y'all doing?
You're great. You're bringing the energy. Jeez. See, we'll bring it in for a quick second. Danielle, this is like a very hyped group. We're animal behaviorists. We're going to have a good time. I'm very excited. And so, Danielle, when we bring you in a minute, our question for everybody is, which I'm going to turn to Lara for next, is what are 3 experiences in nature that you've had, or a couple of experiences that really speak to you, that really impacted you in a meaningful way?
Absolutely. So I'm a primatologist. So the animals that I know the most about are primates, but the work that I do is mostly lab-based. And so the observations that I've mostly had of primates have been of primates in captivity. So when it comes to the natural world, some of my own personal most memorable experiences actually don't deal with primates, but with a variety of other animals. And I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to travel a decent amount. And so I was able to, almost 10 years ago now, I guess, go to the Galapagos Islands off of Ecuador, which for any evolutionary biologist is like a dream trip. And so that was really meaningful to me, both from a scientific perspective and also just from a tourist and enjoying nature perspective. I got to see the marine iguanas, and I got to see the blue-footed boobies and the albatrosses, and we got to go snorkeling with the sea lions and be right near them, but not too close on the beach. And it was fantastic. I've also been to Belize, and I did a snorkeling trip off of Belize where we actually saw a wild manatee in the water, which was really, really exciting. Even the snorkeling guide was excited for that one. So I have had several, but I'm still waiting to get out to Africa or Indonesia, where the orangutans live, and observe them in the wild. That is still a goal that I am working toward.
I very much hope you get that opportunity. It's such a magical part of the world. In fact, Indonesia is a place, when we ask scientists, what's your favorite place in the world? Indonesia is consistently top of the list. And by the way, I'm so happy you mentioned a zoo story. So well-run zoos and aquariums are amazing places for learning about the natural world. For so many people, that is the only chance they'll get to interact with a lot of species, and it can really make a hugely positive difference in people's lives. Now, I grew up near the Toronto Zoo, and the orangutans have 2 stories that I loved. One is that every time the cleaner would come and wash the outside of the window, the female orangutan would grab a rag, dunk it in the moat, and come and wash the inside of the window. And they also discovered that the little big buckets that they had could be paddled across the moat to escape. So they actually ended up having to put holes in the bottom of the bucket so that the orangutan would start to sink, and then they stopped doing that, which is very, hilarious to witness the first time that they tried to do that. But for a lot of our audience today, if you're in Canada and the US, head to a zoo. Look for something called AZA or CAZA accreditation. That means that they're at the highest standards of animal care. But if you do that, you have some amazing experiences. So Lara, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Katie, I'm going to come to you in a second. Danielle, I know you're having some tech difficulties, so I want to come to you really fast. Make sure you get in your questions. Talk to us.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hi. Want to make sure test 1, test 2. Everybody hear me all right?
Everybody hears you. You're good.
Okay. Hi, everyone. How you doing? So I'm Deanne Lee. I study rodents. I study nuisance rodents over urban grading specifically. So you're mentioning a lot of places like East Africa. I actually work in East Africa. I study really large rodents, about 2-foot rodents called pouch rats, but I also study local rodents. Field mice. When I think of meaningful animal experiences, first of all, I was that kid who brought everything home. So I had all kinds of animals in and out the house. But one of my very first meaningful experiences when I graduated high school and I went off to a natural resources career camp run by the U.S. Forest Service, and I got to hold a corn snake for the first time. Ooh. That just really blew my mind. Like I didn't expect that, like how smooth the skin was, and I was nervous because I've been, taught that snakes are scary. This creature was beautiful, and it just really won me over to like really looking at wildlife. And then I'd say some of my other meaningful experiences with animals. I was an agriculture major, so kind of like tussling with the sheep once, trying to shear them. The sheep won. And then I would say, even working with the pouch rodents, one of my most meaningful experiences. When I got bit by one of the pouch rats and I was taken all the way down. And to this day, I still don't have much feeling in my thumb from where I was bitten, and it took 3 grown men to rescue me.
Wow. That's an unexpected experience. I like that you're willing to share that. Thank you for that in the broadcast. But here's our comments from YouTube on that. We're all very sad for your thumb. We are distressed.
You know what? It's a great story. Now it's a great story. So like that's the cocktail story now. And if you could see it, like I show the scar and you can see the divot in my thumb and everything. It's the best story now. That's one of the things, like, we love telling those stories. Like, I almost died this number of times.
Okay, professional detachment out the window. This went in a different place than I expected. I gotta say, I love it. I appreciate you very much. And I love that you started with a snake. Sorry, like, I am a huge reptile fan. Like, Steve Irwin was my hero growing up as a kid. And so many people are afraid of things like snakes. They're afraid of reptiles, they're afraid of spiders, all these creatures that are like a little bit strange, a little bit different. And if you get the chance to interact with them, it's so special. I mean, not that we're recommending everyone run into the bush and grab animals, but I can tell you, as a boy, going to pick up snakes and seeing what that felt like was such an incredible experience for me. Made me feel so much more connected to them, so much more keen on their conservation. And so I'm so glad you mentioned that. It's always nice in places to have the capacity for people to interact with animals in that way. So, Danielle.
Oh, I meant to show my cute little prop that I'm working with. So I work. Yes. This is my little field mouse prop. I made it during my crafting time, and they kind of represent the local little field mice I work with.
Danielle, I suffer from an excess of personality, and it's really great to see that you do as well. Katie, I'm gonna.
I have the right amount.
The right amount. Yeah, that's what we'll stick with. Katie, come on in. You've been in all our broadcasts. You just keep sneaking in. You have all the links, and that helps you get in. Like, even if it's not. But are there experiences that really jump out to you for your experiences in nature?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been really, really fortunate, both like in professional ways. I've gotten to travel and seen some really amazing things. So my primary research is actually studying baby monkeys and their behavior and how they learn to play and locomote and how they begin to form social relationships early in their life. And that's been where I've done a lot of my work, and then expanded into humans and other species, just really in the area of infant development. But one time I was in Namibia doing field research with a colleague of mine. And on our way out to the field site, we stopped and stayed for a day and a night at the Tosha National Park in Namibia, which is amazing. And when Namibia wrote their constitution, 20% of their land is dedicated to conservation. And while we were there, we saw elephants and lions and all sorts of hoofed mammals. But the thing I remember most was seeing a mom honey badger with her juvenile, just kind of walking along in the like scrubland, and they were on their way to go do something, and this like little honey badger is following behind his mom, and I was like, oh my gosh! Not only did I see a honey badger, I saw a juvenile, and those are very short life stages, and so you're more likely oftentimes to see adults, and so seeing a young was really, really exciting. And then a couple of years ago, a couple of years before the pandemic, right? Time's different now. I was down in Australia doing a speaking tour for public health, and took a few days away to go down to Tasmania and went hiking, and was able to see wild echidnas. Of course, these are like one of the very few egg-laying mammals. They have spines, and they dig for insects, and they're really chill. And on the hike, saw one walking along on its little foraging trip, eating insects, and I was like, I'm gonna stay here. And I literally took like 500 pictures of this little echidna, and it was amazing. And then, so those are both kind of like very adventuresome kinds of places and big trips. But my family, I live in Arizona, and my family lives up in the Pacific Northwest of in Washington State, and so I drive back and forth during the summers. And last year, I always drive through the Rockies nowadays because I was like, I need to see animals up through the Rocky Mountains, and I've been going through Yellowstone and Grand Teton routinely because I've wanted to see a grizzly bear so badly, and I finally, in May 2021. On the little highway in between Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park, I finally saw my first wild grizzly bear, and it was just walking along, eating berries and just, being chill. And and it was really great. Eventually a ranger showed up and, shooed the cars that had pulled over away, even though we had stayed the required distance away for our safety, because of course you need to stay distant from wild animals for their protection and your own. But like getting to check off grizzly bear was amazing. So I got a national park pass, which is free to every fourth grader in the United States, in the Every Kid Outdoors program, Every Kid Outside program. And but I got one as an adult, and so whenever I'm doing a road trip or trying to go visit someone or something, I always figure out what kind of public lands are on my way and swing through there hoping to see wild animals.
What a beautiful bunch of stories. And I want to stress something about this, okay? Because I get to see the background, all the other scientists here. In fact, Alyson, Lara, Danielle, I'm going to bring you all in for this. So you're talking about echidna, you're talking about honey badgers, and like we're all such a bunch of nature nerds. Like you say these animals, and everyone's jaw like hits the floor. We're all like, oh, like this is what we're doing in the background. We're all like, so this is what I love about this. When I was a boy, like I would revel in any animal I could see. If there's a snake, I'm like, oh my God, it's a snake. If there's a blue jay, up close and personal, I could watch it for hours. Like it's so special to get to interact and see wildlife. And I think, for our classes today, a lot of the groups, they've been here literally all day long. They watch 6 broadcasts. You guys live and breathe this love of nature. But like it all begins with that passion. If you're fascinated with something, if you love something, it can lead to careers where you get a chance to go to Namibia and Australia and study it. Go to amazing caves with 50 million bats. Like, go explore wild animal zoos across the world. Go get bitten by rats and have cool cocktail stories like Danielle, who we hope has not succumbed to a rat injury, and we hope it's just a connection issue. I think, okay, so far, I think connection's the problem, but we're going to get her back in a minute. But I want to stress that for our kids. Like, when I was a kid, I'm sure you all had this experience too. Like, I was the biggest nerd in my school. Okay, like I was quiz kid. People would ask me animal facts. I would tell them about hagfish, and I can tell you, like 8-year-olds are like, "Ew, hagfish," and I'm like, "No, hagfish, they're the best." Like this is the essence of what March Mammal Madness is all about. It's the essence of what we always try and instill and exploring by the seat of your pants. Danielle is back, number 4. Danielle's trying to make it work today. Danielle, I appreciate you. Keep coming back.
I'm here. I'm glitchy, but I'm here. I promise I'm here.
Well, since you're here, I'm going to stop monologuing for a minute. I'm going to put Katie and Lara and Alyson in the background, and I want to go into, with you and Alyson specifically, about the animals that you study, because you study creatures that a lot of people have a visceral negative reaction to. Rodents, 2-foot rodents, what's going on? And then you make it even worse by being like, I got bitten, I nearly died, and like my thumbs doesn't work anymore. So that doesn't help your case any.
Well, I didn't almost die. Let me just say that. I didn't almost die.
Okay. We're happy for you. So Danielle, for kids that might be tuning in, that might be afraid of rodents, that might like think, ew, gross, what would you say to them? Like, how do you keep your passion? What would we tell kids to get them excited about all this? If you're still there. Oh, it wants to work. Thinking about it. You're frozen in like a happy bow. Alyson, I'm going to come to you for bats. For bats, same question.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, I'm always like, people always say like, oh, people must think bats are so scary, but I've actually been incredibly surprised. I don't know if it's just been the past recent years or just our bat propaganda mafia is like finally working. But so many people actually, like I say I study bats or work with bats and they get so excited. But one of the things that I love to share about bats is that we so often think of sort of this one, like, archetypal bat of like the black pointy ears, scary face, big teeth, scary wings, maybe really big. But bats are actually like there are so many different kinds, and they are some of the most diverse group of mammals. So you have bats that are huge with wingspans as tall as people, but you have bats that have wingspans that are barely the width of your hand. There are bat species that eat basically all the different things. Bats that rodents. There's bats that eat flowers. There's bats that eat fruit. There's bats that eat like just any like thing you can think about. Every little like all these different types of behaviors and diets and habits. Bats trickle down into all of those different places, and so it's always really fun to show like here, like you think of bat as this, but here's all of what they actually are. And if I can show somebody just one a bat they've never heard of before, then that's a win.
What a beautiful.
Can tell I get really excited about it.
Hey, that's the essence of this whole thing, and I'm so glad. Honestly, it's true. You start seeing this love of bats starting to come about. I'd love to see that from some more sort of creepy, crawly, strange creatures that maybe freak people out a little bit. Bats are fantastic. So thank you for that, Alyson. I love your passion. Danielle, you have a second device now. This is very exciting. We're gonna click in with you.
All right, good. Am I right?
You're
Test,
good.
everything good?
Okay, go for it. Oh, were you good?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We're gonna try. Let's do it.
All right. All right. So I work with rodents. So my nieces call me the rat lady. And I'll be honest, I never thought I was going to be the rat lady. So that would be the first thing I tell young folks is that I didn't think I was going to work with the creepy crawlies. That wasn't what I had in mind. I came to them and realized they're so adorable. Like they're cute little faces. They're so adorable. And there's so many interesting questions, especially since I was the kind of kid who I dreamed of traveling a lot of places and I grew up working class poor. So that was a dream, like being able to go on vacation, going on even public lands, like what Katie talked about. That didn't happen, not only in my family, but I didn't know anyone who traveled like that. So I had to make the best in my own backyard. And that's pretty much the perspective I come from is I study backyard species that I can get access to, that I can interact with my neighbors and people who become my friends. Because rodents, in this case, rodents are always around. So I'm not afraid of rodents, but I will say this. I have the same human reaction to a rodent scurrying like anybody else would. It's not because I'm afraid, it's because it startles you. That's a very natural human thing. So, we sometimes just exploit that and say, oh, I'm afraid of them. Like, no, you got startled. Anytime you see something running across in the corner from your side vision, that's a very normal reaction. I still do that. And then I go, oh, okay, I can handle it. Like they're just over there, either shoot them away, or if I have to go get them, I put the gloves on, I put a pillowcase over my hand and I go for it.
Right on, Danielle. I love that you emphasize this fact that you have that visceral reaction. So I think so many people assume that scientists that study these things like, oh, they're instinctual, it's easy, it's no problem at all. And overcoming fear is something that we run into a lot in our broadcast, whether it's divers, whether it's zoologists, astronauts. So for me, I must admit, it's not a mammal. Mammals are cool with me. I'm fine. I love snakes slithering. I find that really cool. Centipedes freak me right out. I've talked about this in my pre-broadcast today. So one day, there was a dead centipede, and I was like, okay, I can put the dead centipede on my hand. And then I did that, and like, okay, I'm like, cool, it's a cool predator. I can respect it now. I still don't want to see them run, but I had the dead centipede on me for like 2 seconds. And I felt very, very proud of myself. So I'm so glad you shared that story. Awesome, guys. All right, tons of questions coming in on YouTube. This is great. So where's that question? See, there's so many that it's hard to even find them. Katie, I'm going to have you field this one because I think this is probably, you were involved in this in some fashion. Okay, Commander Ryan, can we recap the whole incident with the bat who died in the plant a few years ago? And why is everyone's laughing at this? What's going on?
Okay, so I'm going to pass this off to Alyson after just kind of briefly introducing it. A few years ago, we had a division of mutualists. And so these were species that were as a team, and it was, different kinds of symbioses that you find in nature. And there's the fish that lives toward the back end of, sea turtles, shells and eats the feces of the sea turtle, and that's its habitat, is traveling around with this host turtle, and which I'm sure all of the teachers loved their students' chaotic derailment upon learning about that species. But we had like the birds that live on some of the big hoofed mammals and help eat insects and help groom them of parasites, and so but like there's a lot of different kinds of mutualisms or symbioses or co-adaptations, and we really wanted to showcase a breadth of those. And so one of them that we included was the Bornean bat, which is a type of woolly bat, and it has a kind of mutualist relationship with a pitcher plant. And that's, again, the plant is nourished by the waste of the bat, and so when we announced the species that year, somebody created a Twitter account called Team Bat Toilet for the pitcher plant, and it was a big fan favorite. The plant bat combination was not the most competitive team, though, and I don't think they made it very deep in the tournament. So I'm going to hand it off to Alyson because she might remember some of the specifics of that particular encounter.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure that I specifically remember the March Mammal Madness encounter. I will just say that, yeah, that is kind of talking about like all the wild and interesting things that bats do. One of them being roosting in pitcher plants. And it's neat because only certain species of this group of pitcher plants have adapted to attract bats, and they actually have certain certain shapes of their leaves are designed to reflect bat echoes to make it easier for the bats to find them.
What?
It's a super neat system and a super neat example of sort of a bat or a mammal and plant interaction in a way that we don't often think of it. But yeah, the plants basically have these like special like hats that they have kind of on the top of the pitcher. And they are designed to reflect the bat's echolocation calls better than like other types of pitchers in the same like genus of plant. And they're just the right size that one bat fits in there, so they don't really share. But it also makes them really safe because it's hard for predators to get in there. And also the predators don't know that they're there. And then actually the plants, sorry, I could talk about this forever, but the plants also that have bats that live in them grow better because they are getting more nitrogen. So researchers actually were able to show that bats or that plants that had bats roosting in their pitchers, I think grew like 30% better or something. Like they were able to estimate that they are getting like X much more nutrients. And it's all those insect bits are full of nitrogen, and that's what plants need. That's why bat guano is a great fertilizer, like in your garden. But if you can just, if you're a plant, you can just get it yourself. Work it out.
And any sort of mutualism like this in nature, super, super cool. My favorite example ever is actually in British Columbia's coast, where you have like grizzly bears that are grabbing salmon and like dumping the carcasses at the base of trees, and you can track the nutrients from the ocean into the tree because of this. So it's super, super neat. And by the way, a shameless plug for a future section of bracket. There are 4 kinds of carnivorous plants in the world, and they're amazing, and they should all have a bracket together. Katie just saying they're the best. Bladderwort's the one that nobody knows. And they're awesome. Sundew is also unpopular, and they're all in like Charles Darwin's garden. So if you're like end up at Down House in England, it's got a lot of carnivorous plants, super nerd, just like the rest of us. That is awesome. Thank you, Alyson. I love the story. Danielle made it back. Oh, Danielle's back with data. Danielle, you know what? I want to just keep you here while your connection is as good as possible, and then we'll take a next question. So where would you like to, one thing we actually haven't asked much in this program today, we've been talking about some countries and different places to visit. You've talked about East Africa. Where in East Africa, and where would you like to go for field work, if you could?
Oh my goodness, thank you for asking that. I work in Tanzania in East Africa, and I would actually like to explore more of the central southern part. So I would love to kind of take a trek across, going into Mozambique, Botswana, Angola. So I would really like to check out more of the continent to kind of see what's happening down there, to look at that gradient. I also really like working in North America. And I've done some South America. My very first field experience was in Guyana, and I would love to get back down to the Guyana region.
It's so rare people mention Guyana. It just almost never happens. It's such a magical place.
Hold
Almost
up.
everyone goes to
I
there.
got my Guyana flag.
Yay!
Woo!
Woohoo! Nice. See, props have been half my fun in these broadcasts, but again, one of the most special experiences of being a scientist is getting the chance to experience these places. Tanzania is my favorite place I've ever been in the world ever. It's
Beautiful. It is beautiful.
We've had Namibia today. Namibia, Katie, you mentioned this. People talk, like every time I hear Namibia, people talk about it being almost a spiritual place to visit. Like it's just such a surreal part of the world. So I'm so glad you highlighted that too.
Yeah. We were 20 minutes out of Windhoek, the capital, and like there were giraffe and baboon running alongside the highway. And it's an incredible place. And I mean, it's just, there's a ton of conservation effort, but it's the second least densely populated country in the world. Number one is Mongolia. And so you feel like you're out in this like just incredible arid environment, which before I moved to Arizona, I hadn't really spent a lot of time in arid environments, and the Namibian desert is really, really incredible. And since I was a little kid, I'd always dreamed of traveling to amazing places and seeing animals. Like I spent the first part of my childhood in rural Ohio, and then my folks moved us out to Seattle, and my dad was a folk musician, my mom was an artist. None of my family members were scholars or had gotten PhDs. I didn't, that wasn't something that I kind of grew up around. But once I started going to high school and college, I was like, I really like animals and I really like adventure. And I have these questions about evolution and adaptations and growth and development in baby mammals specifically. And so I just have had these really amazing opportunities to travel incredible places for research or conferences or all those things. And it's been just like a really spectacular experience to be able to do that prior to the pandemic, of course. And hopefully once again, but I talked to my mom about it. She's like, I don't know anybody that's been to the places that you've been. And I was like, yeah, it's been really just a series of adventures.
So I'll bring you all in for this, but one of the big themes of today's broadcast has been that science is a gateway to the world. Like if you want to interact with people around the globe, if you want to go to places, it's such a magical way of doing that. Danielle, you talked about the fact that there were people doing what you were doing. And Katie, you mentioned folk, like, I mean, there's no legacy of scholarship in this. In like so many people that we bring on our broadcast are the first people in their family. They craved adventure. They had a passion for something, and they followed it into a career. And I think that's such a special thing about science. It's such a special thing about zoology. One of our big themes today is that that's an avenue to do that. And if there's no representation that you can use to inspire you, be that representation. That's been such an essence of today. It's so exciting. We've got kids joining from all over the US. And again, if you're not a genius, if you're not getting straight A's, that's okay. If you love something, you can follow that into doing something really, really special with your life, with your career, and have the opportunities that the amazing women in today's broadcast have had the chance to do. So Katie, Danielle, especially, I'm really glad you've had the chance to share all that with us today, which is fantastic. Lara, I want to go back to you because I really want to harp on something that you talked about earlier, which is zoos again. So I love zoos. Some of our biggest programs we've ever actually done have been with zoos and aquaria because people want to see those live animals. They want to connect with wildlife. And so in your time there, for people who leave this broadcast and they go to their local zoo, how can they get involved with checking out animal behavior? Like, what can they look for? Because for me, that's always been my favorite thing is like, what are animals doing? A glimpse isn't enough. I want to watch them. I want to get involved and feel excited. What do you look for as a professional doing this? And how can someone who's just for the very first time ever get out and become a smaller version of you?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things when you go to a zoo environment, and this is true when you're doing observations in the field as well, is just recognizing the importance of patience, because we like to be entertained as humans and we want to see animals doing interesting things that we find exciting. And the animals are not there to entertain us. They're there to do their own thing. And so I always tell when I bring students to the zoo, for example, I always say, you have to be patient. You can't just go and take a quick glimpse and see what they're doing. And if they're not doing anything interesting right that second, move along. You have to be willing to sit there and wait and watch, because if you do that, if you take the time to slow down and start to, especially in a zoo environment, be able to observe the animals as individuals, then you start to notice all the really interesting things you're doing that if you're just flying by the exhibit, you're unlikely to take in. So a lot of times people in general tend to be drawn toward primates in zoos, and primates tend to have good representation in zoos because they draw crowds in and because they remind us of ourselves in so many ways. But people will often complain, students will often complain and say they're not doing anything. And I think that it's really a matter of understanding that what you're looking for them to do is not necessarily the interesting stuff that they're going to be doing. So, it's always exciting if you're at a zoo and you're watching a troop of gorillas and one of the gorillas decides to get up and do a display for you. Yeah, that's exciting. I get excited by that too. But it's equally exciting to watch the gorillas, in my opinion, when they're lying and just grooming one another, or when they're having other kinds of social interactions that really are representative of what are more natural behaviors. You're not always going to see the really exciting stuff all the time. And so I think that patience is a really, really key component of any kind of animal behavior observations, because if you go in with too many expectations of what you're looking for, then you're going to miss some of the most interesting things.
We've got a great comment on YouTube about the dedication it takes to be an animal behavior, to be in filmmaking, broadcasting with animals. So 2 stories that really jump out. One of the things that I've loved in BBC documentaries in the last 5-6 years, when Planet Earth didn't really do this back when I really got inspired in the early stage, they always have a 10-minute featurette at the end showcasing what it's like to learn about these animals, the filmmaking process, weeks on end in this little hide with a bunch of salt coming up your leg to get flamingos. And you get this incredible shot and this vision of the majesty of nature, but it takes that patience. And I think that's such an important message. So thank you so much for sharing that. And frankly, since we're talking about zoos, we're talking about primates, which are amazing. David Attenborough's favorite experience of all time was being with gorillas and having that mutual understanding with a glance. I'm at the Toronto Zoo. I'm a volunteer. I'm 16 years old. And I had a lunch hour. So I decided to just wait and watch for a full hour. And the gorilla, I swear this happened. It sounds fake. It's true. The young male gorilla is like sitting back 10 feet from the fence that kids can go up to. And literally, only when children came up, only children, he'd run up full speed and pull the fence to twang it. And the kids would scream, and the gorilla went like, ugh, and went back and sat. And I watched that for a full hour, and it was like the best experience I ever had in a zoo or aquarium. I worked in an aquarium for 2.5 years. That was the most magical experience because I took that effort to be patient and watch. And it's amazing in any context. I mean, we're talking about zoology today, but in any context in life, have patience, have that dedication, and it'll lead to the most surprising and wonderful experiences. So, all right.
And I'll just add to that that's a great example of, this isn't going to be true necessarily to the same degree for every animal, but when you do go to visit a zoo environment, keep in mind that some of the animals are observing you as closely as you are observing them. And so when you're dealing with primates that are really intelligent, they sometimes know what will get a reaction out of the zoo visitors. And so they might be taking advantage of that knowledge to engage in certain behaviors at certain times so that they can observe things that they want to see.
I think it was the Cincinnati Zoo, and you might know this offhand. Santino, the chimpanzee, would like gather stones behind a rock to throw at people, literally like waiting for people in the morning every morning. And again, other apes are terrible throws. So we were the only ape that can hit something from distance. But the fact that thought process went through its mind is incredible. Lara, I'm going to bring everybody back in. Actually, we have like 5 minutes left of the broadcast. I know we could talk all day about this, and frankly, I would love to. But what I want to highlight is our bracket. So again, for our teachers tuning in, check out that LibGuide. I put that in the YouTube chat. That's your one-stop shop for all that great information. Katie, Lara, we got the chance to talk about this today already, like a favorite pick, something that really speaks to you. But Danielle and Alyson, our 64 teachers, is there one that jumps out? Is there like a personal favorite, maybe one you absolutely love, or one you think is going to win, or like what are you thinking for 2022 March Mammal Madness? Danielle, you go first because I know your connection's iffy. Oh, is it too iffy? It's so iffy. Alyson, you go first.
Yeah, so actually I was prepping my bracket earlier today. So obviously, I am very excited by the gradual increase over the years of the bats being able to participate. However, as much as I love bats, they tend to have a very large disadvantage when it comes to body size, which unfortunately, historically, has been very important. Also, behaviorally, they kind of do their own thing, which is great sometimes and sometimes not so great. I will say I am super excited to have, so the Cauldron of Bats mammal collective is the woolly false vampire bat. They are the second largest bat species in the Western Hemisphere. They are carnivorous.
Yes.
They are pretty large. They form relatively so like they form social group, like little family social groups that they actually stay in for a long period of time, which is a little bit unusual among the bats. So I'm really excited to have them in there. Though I'm leaning towards walrus as being our final winner.
Wow. Okay. Big words. By the way, for what it's worth, of the I think probable upsets, the herd of caribou have nothing on the bats. Okay. If you look at caribou the wrong way, they run away screaming across the tundra. So the bats are going to swoop right in, and the caribou
They
are
are
gone.
big. They're big.
Yeah.
They roost in old tombs. They inspired the Maya god of the dead is like a bat god, probably based on these bats being around in those types of places. So fingers crossed.
Not that I know every indigenous culture, but I'm pretty sure caribou do not feature as a god in anything. So bat gods are for the win. Very, very cool. I like that. That's our plug for the day. Danielle, you're back. What's your pick?
You know what? I do a horrible job of picking the winners, no matter what. So I'm gonna tell you who I'm looking forward to. I'm excited about the collection. Like I'm looking forward to that to see how those coordinations work. I'm personally really excited about the first round with the Southern Bog Lemming, which is a small little field. It's a vole versus the bison. And I'm gonna be honest, that could be anybody. I know that the bison is seeded better, but I'm like, it's anybody's game. And so I would like to see the bison go a little bit far, because just something about that size, because historically we don't have very many non-predatory animals or non-carnivorous animals that really do well. So I think I would like to see I'd like to see an herbivore take it. I'd like to see an herbivore, sweep it.
So we talked earlier about the fact that when you get to that final four bit, like it's like a randomized location, which Katie can speak to a little more, but like basically if the orca, people are really big on the orca ends up on land, the orca's going to have a really rough day. And so I like the lemming reference, by the way, like up until this point for most of our speakers, the dogs want in. I think canids are trying to make a cage for themselves in this broadcast. Very cool. But like lemmings, when most people think of lemmings, they think of like leaping off a cliff, which, but bison, I know, it's a myth. It doesn't happen. Bison, our talk of the day, sorry, this is my favorite fact I've learned all day, is that bison can jump their height, which is or their length, like 7-8 feet. And we know this because they leap over fences. No one saw that coming. So Danielle, I think our herbivore is going to take it this year. I'm excited. We'll find out together soon. So time flies when you're having fun. We're at the 44-minute mark. Is there a last message that we want to leave everybody with to just inspire them to get involved in the tournament, about wildlife? Danielle, I'm going to keep you first again. We want to keep that connection live. And we'll come
you know what? Just have fun. It's so much fun. You're going to learn so much. Just have fun with it. Even if your pick doesn't make it or they leave early, it's still so much fun. Have fun.
If you're learning, you're winning. It's our slogan for 2022. It's the best. Great answer. All right. The hard thing with these things where I ask everyone to have a final message is by the time you get to the fourth person, you're like doomed, because usually the other three people are so nerdy that they've covered it all and they're so excited. So Lara, you get to go next.
Okay. I'm going to say embrace the community. Being part of the March Mammal Madness team and getting to know other people in the fan community who are really passionate about it has been enormously rewarding for me over the past 10 years. And I want to point out that I've heard you, Jesse, several times today talk about nerdy and kind of some of these words that have certain connotations with them. And I want to say, like, embrace it. And hopefully, so an event like this, if you feel like you're a kid and you're the only one who's interested in animals and it makes you feel a little bit left out, you know, this should make you recognize that there are so many people out there who feel passionately about these things. And so don't worry if it makes, you know, if you get labeled as nerdy, because there's plenty of us out there who are happily embracing that nerd title and pursuing this as a passion because we recognize how amazing it is.
I am so happy you brought that up, and it's something that I was going to actually mention in the last broadcast of the day, and I should have been highlighting it throughout the entire program. So when I was a kid, being a nerd was a negative thing, and I'm sure in some contexts it still is. It isn't something that I've seen become embraced in so many contexts over the last 10 years, whether that's about fandom and sci-fi and Star Wars and things like that, whether it's about animals or space or whatever. So truly, in every context, in every broadcast I've said today, and I think this holds true for all of our speakers, I mean this in the most positive way. If you love something, being a nerd is being passionate about something and being dedicated to learning about it. And that is always a positive thing. I think that is the essence of what March Mammal Madness is all about. The fact that you guys are learning and that is the ultimate win is so important. And so I do stress that for our audience today. Katie, Alyson, I'm sure you'll echo me with this, but like, we are thrilled that you guys are so passionate as scientists and as an audience today from around the world about wildlife, about these creatures. And thank you so much. So Lara, I really appreciate that you brought that up. Katie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to add though that like the thing that I love about the March Mammal Madness community is that there are a lot of nerds that are way into animals, but like you don't have to know everything about animals already to come be a part of this party, right? Like there's no gatekeeping, you have to have a certain amount of knowledge to be excited about animals. Like, you know, whatever you know, like bring it with you and share it and learn from the others that know stuff. And it's you know, everybody's learning together, and wherever you're at, there's opportunities to grow, and we welcome everyone. And especially, you know, like we need all sorts of people that know about animals or brackets or, you know, single elimination tournaments. And so like, this is a community that celebrates everyone who's excited about science and nature and community.
It sure does. I've said this in a bunch of broadcasts today, but truly, I've been doing this for 7 years. I've hosted over 1,000 programs. I've never had a YouTube audience that has been more fun and vested and heckle each other in the best of way. And just, it's been so enjoyable in every way. And so I'm glad we're echoing this in the YouTube chat. Again, thank you guys so much for all of this. Alyson, we're running way long. We're such rebels together, but that's okay. Is there a last message you have for all our kids today?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll definitely like echo what Katie and Laura and Danielle said of just a community, and also just I know this section is sort of about animal behavior, and I think that's something that I always try to remember is that observing animal behavior, like really any of us can do it. If you do it when you talk to your family and your friends, when you watch your pets. You know, just you don't have to be in the jungle, in the savannah to get to experience that. Because, you know, I study how animals use their sense of smell, and I love to just watch my dog like do his little like track down a smell and sniff and all that stuff. And that's it. That's what it is. That's the fun. That's where we all start. And so if you can capture that, and get into it, that like that's it. That's all you need to be able to learn and explore animals. And I think March Mammal Madness does a great job of helping direct that.
It most certainly does. Alyson, Lara, Katie, Danielle, unfortunately, her connection died right at the last minute there. But for all three of you, thank you so much for joining in broadcast 6 of 7. We're going to head to broadcast number 7 in just a minute. Katie, I'll see you there in like a few seconds. But have a wonderful day, everyone. Keep up the amazing work and community. Go check out that LibGuide. Have a